Welcome to Arizona State University. My name is Jermaine Kimbrough, and I'm here today with my man JB, and I'm gonna give him a quick tour of campus. And I'm super excited to have him on campus and see what this great university is all about. And happy to be here, honored to be here, super excited, and can't wait to get started.
So first place I want to start, who is Jermaine Kimbrough?
First of all, Jermaine Kimbrough, I'm a man of God and a God-fearing man, and that's first and foremost. God has truly been the fundamental um, block to everything I'm about, everything that I do, and who I'm going to be. And you know, that's first and foremost. That's who you're getting as a basketball coach, as a father, as a husband, as a man, as a person that truly believes um, in my Savior.
How has that impacted or helped to shape your philosophy as a coach, as a teacher, as a man, as a leader?
Well, for me, it shapes. It's the fiber of who I am, and you know, my coaching philosophy is based off that. It's based off, you know, how do you treat people, how how you live your life with character, integrity, you know, with direction and guidance, forgiveness, a brother, a father, like love, you know, trust, relationships. These are all fundamentals that that I've learned throughout my life, and being a God-fearing man has carried over to who I am as a coach, as a leader, you know, as a father, as a husband, and those same principles that apply for who I am as a coach. That's how I live my life in my household with my own kids, like or my wife, and I want to develop and teach our guys the same way I teach my household, and that's something that I believe in, and it's something that I've learned to grow into that role over the last 21 years as a coach. I don't think no one starts out this way, but as you get older and you start developing and adding layers to who you are as a person, um, this is the direction that I've chose as a coach, and I've been blessed to be around different coaches that have shown me the way, and some people that I believe in and I look up to that have mentored me, and I feel like this is the best way I can sleep at night is based off how I treat someone else's kids and how I'm developing them on a day-to-day basis. What am I doing to pour into these young men every single day? And I try to do that with my walk. Um, you know, it's hard to pour into someone else at a young age, like these young guys. If you're not pouring into yourself, you know what am I doing every day to help myself get better as a coach, as a man, as a leader, as a father, as a husband? And those are the same principles that I use on a day-to-day basis with our players.
You talked about pouring into them and getting better on a daily basis. And prior, earlier, you and I spoke about your journey and how coaches help to shape and motivate and lead you to the point where you're at. Talk to me a little bit about the influence of the coaches that you've had, the teachers and the educators and the leaders that have impacted your journey and helped guide you to this point where you're at now.
Well, I'll start from the beginning. You know, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, um, on the east side of Cleveland, and the reason why I'm sitting in this chair today, JB, is because my teachers, my coaches, they all took me under their wing. At one point in my life, I was homeless. At one point in my life, I didn't have nowhere to sleep, and basketball saved my life. My coaches saved my life. My high school coach, Bob Watson, my high school math teacher, Al Slauson, my high school English teacher, Mrs. Burgess, and I could go on and on. My high school janitor, Tim Bates. All these people played a vital role in shaping me into the person I am today. And, it was tough for me. I think we talked about this early on, some of the tragic things that I had to go through as a child. I lost two siblings to gun violence in the inner city of Cleveland. And, and those moments, growing up without a mom and growing up without a father at times, and being adopted, has shaped the coach that I am today, shaped the person that I am today. I have adopted, multiple kids over the last years to try to give back, to try to help extend that hand. That's who I am as a person. And if I wasn't coaching basketball, I would probably still be working with the youth and changing their lives. I just happen to coach basketball. I think this is, my everybody wants to find a purpose in life, and I feel like my purpose in life is to give back and to connect. And I'm just using basketball as a vehicle to help these young men grow and develop on and off the floor. And I'm using my life experiences to give these young men the opportunity to something that I didn't have at a young age. I didn't have these opportunities, and basketball helped me. And I got a chance to get connected with coaches and different people, and they helped save my life and shape my life. And I'm just giving back. Whether I was coaching basketball, if I wasn't coaching basketball, I will be dealing with young people.
Man, that's amazing. You talked about basketball saving your life. One of the things that stood out to me when we spoke earlier, you talked a little bit about having to live in the moment and experience it and take it one step at a time. We talked about kind of how kids nowadays, it's so close they can reach out and touch it. And you really didn't have that when you were at Virginia Tech. Talk to me a little bit about your journey going from where you were at in Cleveland, like you said, navigating through homelessness, navigating through the different tragedies within your life, to being a collegiate athlete, and now being on the other end, 20-something years later, being able to help guide and navigate these guys. Talk to me a little bit about that journey.
Well, you talked about touching it earlier. Like I feel like the way the world is set up today, when I was younger, I didn't have a role model. I didn't have someone that I could touch who was on the same journey as I was. I had people in my life that helped me survive some things. They wasn't ball players. They weren't basketball players. They never played college basketball. And so when I say touch, I feel like the youth today, they can walk into a gym and, somewhere in the United States and see an NBA player going up and down with them and be able to communicate with them and touch them. At the time I was growing up, it was more about, survival mode. We was always in survival mode, trying to figure things out, when the next meal was coming from. It wasn't about, seeing someone that was walking the same path as you. I didn't realize what I was missing until I got to Virginia Tech. And, my roommate was Ronyell Whitaker. I don't know if you remember the boxer, Sweet Pete Whitaker. And Michael Vick happened to be at that school, and I had an opportunity to hang out and roommate and be suite mates. And those guys, I didn't realize what I was missing until I got around guys who kind of went through that journey and was, Ronyell, uncle, was one of the greatest boxers of all time, and the information that he had at the time at 19 and 20, I didn't have that information. I always looked at it as if I was, 5 to 10 years behind schedule a little bit. So I had to learn it the hard way. I had to hit the road, fall on my butt a few times. I had to, wake up early. I had to figure things out. And I think we talked about this earlier. The antidote, to those things are: do you have the hard work? Your work ethic, your character? Are you driven? Do you got the willpower? Do you have all these things inside of you that's going to help you fight and overcome all the adversity that you're going through in your life. And sometimes today's youth, they think of instant gratification, right? They think everything is supposed to be right now. And I think for me, what I've tried to give our student athletes is the information on how to fight through adversity, because we're all going to come to it at some point. And I feel like my background and what I've been through, you understand that I can help these young men understand, some of the things that they're going through on a day-to-day basis, not just on the court, but off the court. Getting phone calls from home, what's going on at home. I can communicate the message, I can relate to them, but I also can give them a blueprint on how to be successful. Regardless of what you're going through on a day-to-day basis, there's still a way that you can figure it out. You don't have to revert back to where you're coming from. You got to keep moving forward. And I heard a statement one time: fail forward. Just keep your feet moving. Don't stand in one place. What are you doing every day to better yourself as a person? And I think as a leader, we got to continue to stay connected to the youth, but we also got to use our experiences to help them understand how to get through the adverse situations that they're going to face eventually.
Absolutely. And when you were playing at Virginia Tech, and you were encountering and seeing all these guys that had those same goals and aspirations and were headed down the same path and journey as you, did you know you were going to get into coaching? Did you know that was going to be the next step for you?
Yes, it's funny because, and I think we talked about this earlier. My high school math teacher, Al Slauson, he was the best man in my wedding. He's, when I got married 13 years ago, he was a Caucasian man who poured a lot into me. He was a coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach in the state of Ohio in tennis. He's in the Hall of Fame, and I owe everything to Al Slauson, because he was a coach, but he taught me it's not about the sport or the X and O. It's about the coach is someone who can mentor, who can guide. We all can coach the sport, but can you change a life? And he changed my life. He never picked up a basketball with me. He never shot a jump shot with me, but he changed my life. And I think that's what coaching is all about. When you're around the right people and around the right coaches, they can change your life with their words. They can inspire you. They can motivate you. They can do so much for you without even passing the basketball to you. And I feel like that's what I pride myself on, changing a life for the better. And it's a bigger picture for me. It's not about the next 4 years or 2 years with me. It's about the next 40 years. And if I'm not getting invited to a wedding, if someone's not calling me about their child, or nobody, I didn't do my job. And that's important to me, to stay connected with, former players, but also helping the youth that doesn't play basketball. How can I help them? It doesn't necessarily got to come through basketball.
You just said a lot there. A lot of things have stood out to me is just your willingness to learn, your willingness to work, your willingness to understand the steps that it takes and not try and skip any steps. You talked a little bit about the information or the information gap, and the power of information. Talk to me about how you've navigated through your coaching journey and made up for that lost ground that you didn't have prior to going to college.
Well, it's very important that I think anyone who wants to be successful and change lives is that they learn. They I wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to soak up everything. I wanted to be around the right people, and I was blessed. I've worked for 9 different head coaches in this business, and all of them are successful, and they all got different ways of being successful. And the longest coach I've worked under was Gary Waters. Coach Waters played a significant part in my coaching development. I worked with him for 10 years, and I learned a lot from him. And to be honest with you, I think at the time he was one of the very few African-American head coaches in our business. And Coach Waters did things the right way. He was a character coach. He came out with a book called Character Coach. That's who he lived it every single day. I watched him for 10 years live his life the right way, from a spiritual background, from a coaching background, from an X and O background, from a mentor background. the relationships he's had with all his former players from Kent State to Cleveland State to Rutgers, they all stayed in contact. And I felt like he was the best example I can have because he looked like me. And I'm just being real. Like he looked like me. So I had to learn from him because he was successful. And he had a 20-year head coaching record, and he was successful at what he did. And I learned a lot from him. And I think a few of the things that I learned from him was he always taught me that it's not about you. It was about, your relationship, with God, your protection. And he brought a very important spiritual foundation to my life. And he used that spiritual foundation to coach his players. And it was a connection. It's funny because I worked with Coach Waters for 10 years, never heard him say a cuss word. Never heard him say a cuss word. And he had a great way of getting to his players. And then now I move on. I'm here with Coach Hurley, and I can't say enough that being here for the last 6 months with Coach Hurley, how much I've learned from him, and probably what he's learned from his dad, and learned from Coach K and his background, and I think that's important because now it's a different way of walk. Like he's giving me different ways to see the game. He's giving me different options to see the game and be a coach and be a mentor. And so I've been blessed and fortunate to work for multiple head coaches, whether that's Porter Moser or Allen Edwards or Mike Garland or Chris Jans. And I've just had an opportunity to work for a boatload of successful head coaches and learn. And I just wanted to take, I want to take the best from them and add it to myself. So when I get my opportunity to run my program, that I can take off and be successful and I don't have to look back.
One of the things you talked about is learning from 9 different head coaches and navigating a journey of multiple destinations. What does it mean to you, to be here at the Pac-12 level, to be here at Arizona State? What does this part of your journey or this part of your season of coaching mean to you?
I think it means everything. To be in the Pac-12 and be here at Arizona State under a legendary coach and player and Bob Hurley. Like this means everything. This stop, I mean, you have to take advantage of the advantage. Like I'm learning from a 2-time national coach who's also done some things in this program that has never been done before. The one thing I can tell you about Coach Hurley, man, he's a ball coach. He's a competitor. It's a reason why, he was a lottery pick. It's a reason why he won 2 national championships. His competitive edge, his drive, his will, so being here means everything. I'm learning from the best of the best. So if I can continue to learn from Coach Hurley and just add another layer to who I am as a coach, as a person, as a mentor, I think there's nothing but, success written all over this. I just got to learn and pick his brain on a day-to-day basis and watch him on a day-to-day basis, and I think I'll be successful.
You touched on a lot there that goes along with legacy and with history and the mark that they've made not only as a player but as a coach. One of the things that stands out a lot to me when we talked is your ability to impact, to motivate, to inspire across, outside the lines, the 94 feet of competition. There's so much along with your story. There's so much there that can, change the lives of many people, regardless of what walk of life they're traveling on. Talk to me a little bit about overcoming adversity and utilizing what you've gone through as a method for motivating and teaching and impacting others. So what I mean by that, we spoke earlier, you had a conversation with a player. You just said to him, hey man, I know that sometimes we go through things on the mental side that we don't talk about, right? Or, how does the adversity that you've faced and you've navigated through, how are you using that to better, make yourself not only a better coach, but just a better motivator and a better leader for others?
Well, for me, it's very important that I have a relationship, a genuine relationship, and I know everything about, our players. You know, if you don't know everything about those players and where they're coming from and what they've been through, it's hard for you to tap in and to have a connected relationship with them to help them develop and grow. And I try to know everything I can. And when the opportunity comes where I need to motivate or inspire or to hold them accountable, I can do that. I can tap into my resources or my experiences that I went through to help them see. You know, I always tell the players that, you know, the 40-year-old version of yourself is counting on who you are today at 19. You just don't know it yet. So at 19 years old, you don't know what you don't know. But the 40-year-old version of yourself know. And I never want you to look back over your life and say that the people that you came in contact with, especially myself, that you weren't prepared. You know, you didn't know. I want to make sure you know. And, and you know, I always tell them, have you ever been 40 years old before? Have you ever been 30 years old before? Have you been 25? No, coach, I've never been that age. Well, there's a reason why you haven't been that age. I've been 19, 20, 21, 22. So I'm giving you this experience that I went through. And whether it's, you know, me understanding, you know, going to college, playing sports, you know, and not doing well, or, you know, struggling in the classroom, or, you know, you get a phone call from home and some things are going on at home, you know, just coming from the background I come from, I suffered a lot through my college days because I didn't have anyone to call or anyone to talk to. So I wanted to make sure I was that ear to our student athletes and our players, that they can pick up the phone and call me at any given time. You know, whether I'm sitting in the locker room with them on a one-on-one and I'm trying to give them that harsh reality of what life is all about, or I got my arms around them and I'm loving them. You know, every day it's a different conversation. It don't have to be the same conversation. I just got to know. You know, today, I got, you know, I got to pick up the phone and call one of our players. He texts me, and I got to respond to that. And, you know, I might have to be on the phone with him. He got some things he want to talk about. Like, I have to be that open ear. I have to be that person to know the information that I'm giving them, the love that I'm giving them, and that I got my arms around them, that I'm touching them, that they can get through this. And then now I try to give them a blueprint. You know, hey, here's what you need to do, you know, on a day-to-day basis. This is how you need to, you know, you're not going to always have a great game. You know, you're not going to always do well in the classroom, but how do you bounce back? How do you respond? Not react, but respond in a positive way. And that's my job as a coach, is to equip them for the next 40 years of their life.
I like what you said there. Don't react, but respond, and how to respond. And those responses are going to shape, what comes after that, right? It's not necessarily what happens to us in life, but how we respond to it. And I think a lot of guys, the basis or the motivation behind more than just a recruiter is about identifying young black men and women who are in the industry who are working towards that goal of that front seat, that first seat, being a one day being a head coach. So a two-part question. One, what do you feel has best prepared you for that opportunity? Obviously, you say you're still learning, and there's things you're picking up along this journey. But what along the path has best prepared you, for when you get that opportunity? And then two, what piece of advice do you know now that you wish you knew, kind of starting off early, that you would give to a new coach or somebody saying, "Hey, I want to embark on this path"?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, is where I started from. I started off and I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to learn the video. I wanted to learn, how to do graphics. I wanted to learn the X's and O's, the player development, the academics, the financial aid, the housing. I mean, it's just so many boxes you have to check off as a college coach. And I felt like I did that at a young age. I wanted to know everything, and that prepared me to where I'm at today. It's funny because I'll never forget this. Like, when I started off, I didn't make any money in this business. I didn't make any money. When I got to Cleveland State, they didn't even have an operation spot. They didn't even have a third assistant spot. It was just starting to turn over. So you know what I had to do at 23? I had to I was the director of minority affairs at 23 years old at Cleveland State. I operated the class program, cooperative learning academic success system. So I had to deal with the other side of the academics. I didn't just coach basketball. I had to go in the office at 8 a.m., do all my basketball stuff, be in the office, in the minority affairs office from 10 to 2. Then I had to come back, get ready for practice, figure out the practice stuff, what we were doing on the court on practice, because they didn't pay any money. It was always like almost volunteer. So I had 2 jobs I was balancing at the same time, but I was also sleeping in the office. Like my day didn't end. In order for me to make money, I had to do that. And then at night, I did janitorial work. I had to go clean the bookstore on Cleveland State campus. And I had to do all these things to manufacture, to build up, to be a coach, a college coach. When I started in junior college in Texas, I was the dorm director. I oversaw, I worked in the dean's office. I did academics. I did all these things just to be a college basketball coach. And I think those experiences on that campus, at Howard College, at Cleveland State, at a young age, prepared me to see both sides of it. Being an operations guy, being in the dean's office, being a director of the dorms, you know, working in the minority affairs department, and then taking all that information and adding it to who I am as a basketball coach gave me an edge, gave me an advantage to kind of understand both sides of it, not just from a coaching standpoint, but from an administrative standpoint. And I felt like that has helped me in my journey to get to where I'm at and why I'm ready to lead my own program.
That's awesome.
And it's been a journey. It hasn't, a lot of people, and it's like we talked about earlier about young coaches. I don't know the young coaches today will be willing to do all those things that I've done. I just didn't jump right in and say I wanted to be a coach, and I didn't have to go through all these battles. Like it was, I had to go here, I had to go there. I didn't make any money. I had to, eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on a day-to-day basis. I had to sleep in the office. I had to sleep on the floor. I did all these things just so I can be able to sit here today. And it was a journey. And I feel like that's what prepared me and why I'm prepared to be a head coach.
You touched on a lot of things that are key. And, number one, not skipping any steps. Number two, being where your feet are and understanding that there's going to, it takes what it takes. And if you really want it, if you really want to be successful, it doesn't really matter what the cost of that success is. You have to put in the work and you have to do what it takes. Talk to me a little bit about, how you've prepared that next generation. So I heard you talking to a younger coach earlier, giving him some advice, kind of being that leader. Even though you're not the head coach yet, you're preparing others to not make the same mistakes or not go through the same things you went through. Talk to me a little bit about understanding a role within a hierarchy, a coaching hierarchy, and being that leader amongst your peers.
Well, that's important because that's something you work on over the years, and you always want to give back. And you asked me a question about what would you do and say to your younger self, or how would you answer that to your younger self? And one of the best ways I can put it is, as a young coach and who I am today. I mean, I was a quiet kid growing up. I probably wasn't the most social guy. If you go talk to my coaches, I was a quiet leader. I tried to lead by example. And I think over the years, I've learned how to express myself as a leader. And I had to learn how to communicate. And, one of the things I've learned is where there's a lack of communication, negativity fills the void. And so when you don't communicate, you leave it out to chance that somebody's going to misunderstand something. And that's what I would tell all coaches: communicate, talk to everybody. You can learn from anybody. It's not just something that you just want to talk to the head coach. You want to talk to every assistant. You want to talk to the director of operations. Go talk to the women's staff. I mean, it's some great head coaches on the women's staff. Get to know the head coaches over there, the assistant coaches. You can always learn from everybody. So if I had to give, one advice to young coaches, it would be get to know everybody, regardless of background, regardless of where you come from, whether you were a private school kid growing up, whether you're a public school kid, get to know everybody. Get to know, understand every culture. Get to understand every parent. Just don't be comfortable in your own skin. Get out, get uncomfortable, get to know people, have an open mind. You know, and and I think you start off by loving everybody. Got to show love, man. My wife always tell me you attract uh, you attract more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And I tell everybody, man, customer service. When people come in, have a presence about yourself. Give them a smile. Touch them. How you doing? Speak to them. Get to know people. Make people feel comfortable, and you be surprised. It comes back tenfold. Help people. Make time. Make time for people. Make people feel important, and that's something that I pride myself on. I want everybody that comes in contact with me, and when I leave that person, they say that's a great man. That man made me feel good. I learned something from him, not just from a basketball standpoint of view, but I hope they learn something from me, on who I am as a man on a day-to-day basis.
All right, two questions for you. One, I just noticed the wristband, the BCA.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some conversations with Pooh Jeter. I've had some conversations with some of those guys on what they're trying to do, what their goals are. Talk to me a little bit about having that representation, having the power behind your voice of guys working together, being together, partnering together, all for the greater good of the next man up.
That's very important to me because, like I said, I've worked for 3 minority head coaches. Mike Garland, Allen Edwards, Gary Waters, and every day I get up, I know I'm representing the African American coach, and I live my life with integrity, with character, and I take pride in that. I take pride in being part of that BCA, and communicating with other coaches out here that need that mentorship or need that phone call to talk to someone, to be that voice or to be that ear. And it's something that I take pride in. I want to, and I think I heard this in one of your episodes with Coach Gates, and he talked about his representation of Coach Hamilton and George Raveling, and how that's important to him, and working under those guys and making those guys proud of him, and it's the reason why he's doing what he's doing, because of a legacy. So when I operate, I'm operating to leave a legacy and to clear the path and to help and to develop the younger generation that's behind me, that's coming through here, and to pave a way for them, and to make the people that I work with more educated, more aware of the problems that our coaches and African American coaches and players go through on a day-to-day basis. That's my job, to educate everyone that I work with. So now when the next coach comes through here, or got a chance to be a head coach, people got a better understanding to be able to relate to someone. And I live my life like that. And I told you, I've worked with some great coaches. I've been under some great African American coaches, and I wear that proudly. And that's something that I believe in wholeheartedly.
One of the things that has impressed me throughout our entire conversation, and the multiple conversations we've had, your sense of gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
and your thankfulness to those guys that were there for you, the people that impacted your life, impacted your journey. I sat back and I felt bad that I couldn't remember all of my my high school teachers and
Mm-hmm.
the people that impacted me. But what I do know is I'll never forget my high school coach. I'll never forget the things that he did for me. I'll never
Mm-hmm.
forget the impression that he left on me. When you think about your legacy, and you mentioned earlier, following some amazing leaders and amazing black men as head coaches that you worked for and had the opportunity to work with. When you're leaving that legacy, and you're thinking about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the line, what do you want the legacy of Jermaine Kimbrough to be as a coach, as a husband, as a father, and as a man?
That's a great question, because my legacy is what I leave in people. My legacy will be what I leave into my children, what I leave inside of them. You know, what I leave inside my wife or my players, I want them to be able to look back over their life and say, have that moment where they said, man, I'm so glad I came in contact with him. I'm so glad that that was my father. I'm so glad that was my coach, because he gave it his all, in his walk, in his day-to-day walk. And I think legacy is important. It's not about championships. It's not about, everybody look at it from a coaching standpoint of view. So when you think of legacy, you start thinking about championships and, how many players you put in the NBA. And that's not why I got into the business. I told you this earlier. I got into the business because those coaches saved my life. It was never about a championship. It was never about how many jump shots you got up today, how many times you dribbled the basketball with me. It was about those people taking time to pour into me when they didn't have to. And that's to me, that was a legacy. And I remember those people, and I remember those names because when I was in college, JB, I used to get care packages. Didn't even know they were coming. And it would be my teachers with notes. Those are the moments that got me through those tough times when I couldn't get through a practice or I had a bad game. And, I couldn't just pick up a cell phone back then. We didn't have them. But I had to save those notes, right? And I used to go back and read those notes because those people knew what I went through. And when those notes, and I still got these notes it's been over 20 some years, I still got these notes from my high school teachers. I don't even know if they make high school teachers like this anymore, but because my teachers cared about me. They loved me. I went to their houses and they, and at the time, you never know how much money people make. High school teachers don't make a ton of money, but they found a way to send me, you got this thing called GoFundMe, right? Back then they didn't have that. So they had to send money in the mail. So I didn't have parents at the time, or I didn't have, and I told you, I was adopted, and man, my godmother and the person who adopted me, Dr. Phyllis Dukes, bless her, man, she's been unbelievable. I've been with her since I was young, and she adopted me, and I used to get these notes and these books, and that's why I do what I do. I do what I do because those teachers poured into me, and they showed me what real human beings were. And you know what? They all weren't black teachers. They were white teachers. They were Hispanic teachers. They were good people. And that's why I try to treat everyone the same way. That's where gratitude come in at, because I've been through it. I haven't been handed a silver spoon. I had to work for everything. And I look at my life and I look at my coaching position as a bottom up. I'm a bottom up coach. Started at the bottom and I worked my way up. Nobody gave me a handout. I didn't get to start at Virginia Tech because I played there. I had to go to junior college route and I had to start there, and I had to work my way up, and I had to work hard, and I had to work long hours. I had to stay in contact with people, and I had to show gratitude every single day, and I had to bring energy, and I had to figure it out. Even when I didn't know how to figure it out, I had to figure it out. And that's the reason why I'm grateful, because I know how hard it is to struggle to make your dreams come true. And I understand why some students or some people give up on those dreams because of the lack of support. And anyone that comes in my presence, I never want them to feel like they don't have support. I want them to always feel like they can pick up the phone, they can call me, I'm going to talk to them, and I'm going to support them. I'm going to be there for them. That's how I want all my players to feel. My wife, my kids, my coworkers, the coaches that I coach with, my friends, that they have an ear, they have somebody they can depend on, and I'm always going to be here for them.
Man, that's amazing. And I told you earlier, I'm inspired by your journey. I'm inspired by, your ability to articulate the gratitude that you have, the thankfulness that you have, the support that you've had over the years. I think a lot of times, and a lot of people, especially within our culture, it's almost it's almost popular to have the mindset of I did it myself. I pulled myself up by the bootstraps. It's self-made, right? Like I think that's the
right.
It's the kind of cliche catchphrase is, hey, I'm a self-made man, or I did this on my own. And to hear your readiness and willingness to share the light and say, hey, you know what, I could have done this on my own. I think that's important for us to hear. It was important for me to hear because at times we do feel like we're alone.
Oh, correct.
No matter how bad things get, understanding that we never know what somebody else is going through. We never know, like you said, your teachers. There were times where they may not have had it, but
they figured it out.
They figured it out, and they made sure that you knew that they supported you. They made sure that they sent you those care packages and things. So, I think your story is extremely motivational.
Yeah.
I think it's inspirational. It's definitely educational, but more than anything else, I think it's impactful. And I think that anybody that takes the time to watch this or to hear this is going to learn not only about you, but about what it takes to be successful within this industry. So, I know I asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything I didn't ask you about, or anything that you'd like to share with us to close us out?
The one thing I would share is I would say, and it's something I would say to, my players. I would say life is short. I think we see that all the time, and life is bigger than basketball. But basketball is a great sport, and I think I shared this with you earlier, and one of the reasons why I got into coaching, and I'll never forget this summer. It was 1992, and I shared this with you earlier. It's 1992. I was like a freshman in high school, and my high school coach was Bob Watson, and he coached with George Raveling at Iowa and Washington State, and they were best friends. And I never met George Raveling at the time, but I heard all these stories about who he was as a coach and who he was as a person. And one day, and summer ball, you get to go out, maybe go to a couple of different high schools and play against those high schools in the summertime. And we just happened to be at Cleveland Heights High School, one of our rivalries, and an older gentleman by the name of John McClendon, who was the head coach at Cleveland State, head coach at the Cleveland Pipers. I had an opportunity to bump into him and didn't know who he was. And it was breathtaking, because once I did my homework and research years later to find out who that guy was, and now I got photos of him in my home office from 1960 and the 50s that Cleveland State collected, because I didn't know who this man was at the time, and how powerful he was. And in the stories I heard about George Raveling at the time kind of influenced me to go into coaching. And I told you the guy who saved my life, who I credit, man, is Al Slauson. He was a coach, and that's the reason why I always wanted to coach. And then once I did my homework on John McClendon, and I told you the story that I read in the book called Breakthrough with Milton Katz, he talked about John McClendon getting dropped off at the University of Kansas by his father. And he told his father before he got out of the car he wanted to go into PE, he wanted to coach. And his father told him, hey, go see James Naismith. And that's the person you need to check in with. So he goes into this office and he introduces himself, and he tells James Naismith in his book, my father sent me to introduce myself. And he said, oh, did he? He said, yeah, he sent me to introduce myself to you, and I want to be a coach. And he said, really? Your father told you want to be a coach? You need to introduce yourself to me. And he said, well, my name is, Dr. James Naismith, and I'm PE director here at the University of Kansas. And okay, here's some things you need to do to be a part of this. And I really believe the game of basketball is where it's at today because the person who invented it was a great human being. And John McClendon was in a swim class, and he got into the pool, and he was swimming, and all the white students and white janitors all got out of the pool, right? And the janitor drained the water out of the pool. And Dr. James Naismith heard about this, and he went to the president's office, and he defended John McClendon, right? He protected him. And he told the president at the University of Kansas, if I hear about this again, if this happens again, I'm going to resign. It's in the book. I'm going to resign. I'm going to turn in my resignation letter. And that right there, when I read that in that book and I had an opportunity to know who this man was and to research him and to know that I was in his footsteps at Cleveland State University, and I knew a lot about him. And I knew he was living in Cleveland Heights, and I knew he was around. He was a professor at Cleveland State. And for me to be around that and to bump into him and to know who he was as a person and what he went through, there's no reason why I love this game of basketball. It's why this is the greatest game ever, because the person who invented it, right, was all about the right things. He never looked at color, right? He never saw color. He saw a human being that he can help, that he can mentor, he can guide. And if you do your homework, you know how great of a coach John McClendon was. He was a mentor. He was a leader of men. He won national championships. But you never heard about those things, right? And as an African-American coach, that's how I want my legacy to be. You know, I want to be, and I had an opportunity to work for a Gary Waters or Allen Edwards or, Mike Garland, and people that look like me. And one day I want to be able to thank them and to say thank you for helping me along my way to get me to my point. And that's what this whole thing is about. It comes back full circle, right? So one day when I'm not here, and I tell you life is short, I hope I've passed along that torch to a younger generation that is going to do the same thing. So I just want to say thank you to John McClendon, to Gary Waters, to Allen Edwards, to Mike Garland, to all the African-American coaches that's out there that has went through the struggle, that is fighting every day, that's fighting a good fight. And when we see each other, let's greet each other with love and prosperity and to help each other. And that's what it's all about. And that's why I'm here.
That's awesome.